You won't touch her. Amara Jones's voice trembled with defiance as she stood firm, shielding Clara Hawthorne's frail form from a deadly threat in the sterile glow of St. Augustine's private hospital. Rain lashed the San Francisco windows, mirroring the storm brewing within. Amara, a 27-year-old nurse and the only black woman in a sea of white coats, was handpicked by Clara, a revered philanthropist, for her unwavering heart. Yet in that moment, her courage would spark a battle that shook the foundations of wealth and power. A single act of loyalty would unravel a web of betrayal, exposing secrets that no one saw coming. Her stand would redefine honor, proving it's forged not in status, but in sacrifice. Stay to uncover how one woman's truth turned a hospital into a battlefield. Share where you're watching from and hit subscribe to join this journey. The fluorescent lights of St. Augustine's private hospital hummed softly, casting a sterile glow across the polished linoleum floors. The air carried the faint scent of antiseptic, mingling with the distant murmur of monitors, beeping in rhythm with fragile heartbeats. It was here, in this fortress of wealth and healing in San Francisco's elite quarter, that Amara Jones moved with quiet purpose. At 27, she was the only black nurse in a sea of white coats, her presence a stark contrast to the uniformity of the staff. Her dark eyes, sharp with focus, scanned the chart in her hands as she navigated the pristine halls, her sneakers squeaking faintly against the floor. Amara's uniform, crisp and navy blue, bore the weight of countless night shifts, but her posture remained unyielding, as if she carried more than just medical supplies, an unspoken vow to prove herself. Clara Hawthorne, 78, lay in room 312, her frail form a shadow of the titan she once was. The philanthropist who had funded schools and shelters across California now clung to life, her heart weakened by time and disease. Her silver hair fanned across the pillow, and her hands, once strong enough to sign million-dollar grants, trembled as they clutched the edge of a thin blanket. Amara adjusted the IV drip with practiced care, her fingers steady despite the sidelong glances from passing nurses. Clara's choice to name Amara her primary caregiver had sparked whispers that echoed in the break room, where coffee cups paused mid-sip and eyes narrowed. "Why her?" they muttered. "She's not one of us." But Clara's decision was rooted in a memory from decades past. Amara's mother, a nurse herself, had pulled Clara from a car wreck in her youth, saving her life with the same quiet courage Amara now embodied. Outside, the city pulsed under a gray sky, the threat of rain hanging heavy. The hospital's tall windows framed the San Francisco skyline, its lights flickering like stars against the dusk. Inside, Amara's world was smaller, confined to the rhythm of Clara's shallow breaths and the steady beep of the heart monitor. She checked the chart again, noting the medication schedule with precision. "You're doing fine, Mrs. Hawthorne," she murmured, her voice soft but firm, a lifeline in the sterile silence. Clara's eyes fluttered open, their pale blue depths carrying a spark of defiance. "You're just like her, Amara," she whispered, her voice raspy but warm. "Your mother, she never backed down." Amara smiled, her chest tightening with pride and pain. Her mother's memory was both a shield and a wound, a reminder of why she endured the stares and the whispers. Ethan Hawthorne, Clara's grandson, strode through the hospital's glass doors, his tailored suit a sharp contrast to the clinical surroundings. At 42, he was the polished CEO of the Hawthorne Foundation, his jaw set with the weight of a legacy. His dark hair was flecked with gray, and his eyes, though sharp, carried the exhaustion of endless board meetings. He nodded curtly to the staff, unaware of their hushed judgments about Amara. His focus was on Clara, the woman who had shaped his values, and the foundation that bore her name. Yet beneath his composed exterior, tension simmered. Pressure from donors, from rivals, and from his sister Chloe. Chloe Hawthorne, 35, glided into the hospital with the confidence of a surgeon who knew her worth. Her white coat was pristine, her blonde hair pulled into a sleek bun, but her smile was a blade, sharp and cold. As a renowned cardiothoracic surgeon, she commanded respect, but her ambition stretched beyond the operating room. She saw Clara's frailty as an opportunity, a chance to seize control of the Foundation's vast resources. In the hallway, she caught sight of Amara adjusting Clara's blanket and paused, her eyes narrowing. "Still playing hero, are you?" she said, her voice low, laced with disdain. Amara met her gaze, unflinching. "Just doing my job, Dr. Hawthorne." The words were steady, but her heart raced. Chloe's presence was a storm cloud, promising trouble. In the staff lounge, the whispers grew louder. "She doesn't belong here," a nurse muttered, stirring her coffee. "Clara's too trusting." Another shrugged. "She's good at her job, but a primary caregiver? Really?" The words stung, but Amara had learned to let them slide, like rain off a window pane. She focused on Clara, on the small victories, each steady heartbeat, each faint smile. Yet the hospital's sterile walls couldn't shield her from the weight of being the outsider, the one who had to prove her worth twice over. Her mother's voice echoed in her mind. "Stand tall, Amara. They'll try to break you, but you're stronger than their words." Ethan visited Clara's room, his face softening as he sat beside her. "How's my favorite philanthropist?" he asked, his voice gentle. Clara's lips curved faintly. "Better with Amara here," she rasped. "She's got your mother's fire." Ethan glanced at Amara, his expression unreadable. He respected Clara's choice, but hadn't questioned the staff's unease, too consumed by his own burdens. Outside, the first drops of rain began to fall, tapping against the windows like a warning. Chloe lingered in the doorway, her eyes flicking between Clara and Amara. "You trust too easily, grandmother," she said, her tone light but edged with venom. Clara's gaze sharpened. "I trust those who earn it," she replied, her voice weak but resolute. As Amara prepared Clara's evening medication, she sensed the undercurrent of tension. The hospital, with its gleaming surfaces and cutting-edge machines, was a battlefield in disguise. Chloe's ambition was no secret. She had pushed for control of the foundation at every board meeting, her arguments cloaked in concern for Clara's health. Ethan, distracted by corporate pressures, hadn't seen the full scope of her greed. Amara, though, felt it in every glance, every barbed word. She checked Clara's pulse, her fingers steady, but her mind racing. Something was coming, something darker than the rain clouds gathering outside. The chapter closed with Amara standing at Clara's bedside, the heart monitor's steady beep a fragile promise. The hospital's lights flickered as the storm grew closer, casting long shadows across the room. Amara's resolve hardened, her mother's memory a beacon in the growing dark. She didn't know what Chloe was planning, but she knew one thing. She would protect Clara no matter the cost. The rain fell harder now, a relentless drumbeat against the windows, and in its rhythm, Amara heard the echo of her own heartbeat, steady, unyielding, ready for the fight ahead. Rain battered the tall windows of St. Augustine's private hospital, each drop a hammer against the glass, as if the San Francisco sky itself was raging. Inside room 312, the sterile hum of machines was drowned by the storm's fury, but Amara Jones moved with steady hands, her Navy uniform a quiet anchor in the chaos. She adjusted Clara Hawthorne's IV drip, her eyes scanning the heart monitor's steady rhythm. Clara, the 78-year-old philanthropist, lay fragile beneath the crisp white sheets, her breathing shallow but even. Amara's dark braids swung softly as she leaned in, whispering, "You're holding strong, Mrs. Hawthorne." Clara's lips twitched, a faint smile, but her eyes remained closed, heavy with exhaustion from her weakening heart. The hospital corridor buzzed with the night shift's routine, but tension hung thicker than the antiseptic air. Chloe Hawthorne, Ethan's ambitious sister, paced outside the room, her white coat pristine, but her expression stormy. Her blonde hair, pulled tight, gleamed under the fluorescent lights, but her blue eyes burned with frustration. Hours earlier, Clara had rejected her proposal to take over the Hawthorne Foundation's reins, her frail voice cutting through Chloe's polished arguments. "The foundation stays as it is, Chloe. It's for helping people, not your ambitions." The words had stung, and now Chloe's gaze fixed on Amara through the glass door, a predator sizing up prey. Amara sensed the shift as she updated Clara's chart, her pen pausing mid-stroke. The door swung open, and Chloe entered, her heels clicking sharply against the linoleum. "Still hovering, are you?" Chloe's voice was smooth but laced with venom. Amara straightened, meeting her gaze. "Just doing my job, Dr. Hawthorne." But Chloe wasn't here for pleasantries. She moved to Clara's bedside, her fingers brushing the medication tray with deliberate carelessness. A vial of Clara's heart medication tipped, rolling toward the edge. Amara's instincts kicked in. She lunged to catch it, but Chloe's hand was faster, swapping the vial with another from her pocket in a fluid motion. Careless, Chloe muttered, her lips curling. You should be more careful with her meds. Before Amara could respond, Clara's monitor beeped erratically, the rhythm faltering. Amara's heart lurched. She checked the IV line, her fingers trembling as she traced the tubing. The dosage was wrong, dangerously high. This isn't right, she whispered, her voice tight. She grabbed the emergency syringe from the crash cart, administering a counteractive dose with precision honed by years of training. Clara's breathing steadied, the monitor's frantic beeps slowing to a stable pulse. Amara exhaled, sweat beading on her forehead, but relief was short-lived. You tampered with her medication. Chloe's accusation sliced through the room, loud enough to draw a passing orderly's attention. Her finger pointed at Amara, her face a mask of feigned outrage. I saw you swap the vials. You're stealing drugs to sell, aren't you? Amara's eyes widened, disbelief rooting her to the spot. That's not true, I just saved her. But Chloe's voice rose, shrill and commanding. You're a liability, Amara. You think you belong here, but you're out of your depth. The orderly hesitated, then backed away, his radio crackling as he called for security. Ethan Hawthorne burst into the room, his suit rumpled from a late board meeting, his face etched with stress. What's going on? He demanded, his eyes darting between Chloe and Amara. Chloe seized the moment, her tone shifting to calculated concern. Ethan, she nearly killed grandmother. I caught her tampering with the medication. Look at the vial. She held up the swapped vial, its label damning in the harsh light. Amara's voice broke as she protested. I didn't. I corrected the dose. She was overdosed. But Ethan's gaze was clouded, his mind overwhelmed by corporate pressures and Chloe's convincing act. Amara, you're suspended, he said, his voice heavy but firm. Leave now. Security will escort you out. The words hit like a physical blow. Amara's hands shook as she set down the chart, her throat tight with unshed tears. Mr. Hawthorne, please, I would never harm her, she pleaded. But Ethan turned away, his jaw set. Chloe's lips twitched with a triumphant smirk as security arrived, their radios crackling. Amara gathered her bag, her movements slow, as if delaying the inevitable could change the truth. The rain outside roared louder, a relentless curtain that soaked her uniform the moment she stepped into the night. Her sneakers squelched on the wet pavement, each step heavier than the last as she stumbled toward the hospital's exit. Alone under a flickering street lamp, Amara pressed her hands to her face, the cold rain mingling with her tears. The accusation burned deeper than the chill, stealing, tampering, endangering Clara. She had saved a life, yet here she was, cast out like a thief. Her mother's voice echoed in her mind. Stand tall, Amara. They'll try to break you, but you're stronger. She clenched her fists, her resolve flickering like the lamp above. Clara's trust, her frail smile, her whispered words about Amara's mother. They were worth more than Chloe's lies. But the hospital doors loomed behind her, a barrier of glass and steel, shutting her out from the only place she'd ever felt purpose. The storm raged on, its thunder swallowing Amara's quiet sob. She pulled her coat tighter, though it did little to shield her from the cold or the weight of injustice. Chloe's smirk, Ethan's dismissal, the orderly's hesitation, they replayed in her mind, each a shard of glass in her chest. Yet beneath the pain, a spark of defiance burned. She hadn't saved Clara just to walk away. Her fingers brushed the phone in her pocket, an idea forming, a way to reach Clara, to fight for the truth. As the rain blurred the city lights, Amara stood straighter, her mother's strength steadying her. This was not the end. The storm outside was fierce, but the one inside her was fiercer still. The rain had softened to a drizzle, but the chill clung to Amara Jones's skin as she sat in a dimly lit San Francisco cafe, the glow of her phone casting shadows across her tired face. Her Navy uniform, still damp from the storm, hung heavy on her shoulders, a reminder of the injustice that had cast her out of St. Augustine's private hospital. The accusation, tampering with Clara Hawthorne's medication, stealing drugs, burned in her chest like a wound that wouldn't close. Amara's fingers hovered over her phone, her breath uneven. She couldn't let Chloe's lies bury the truth. Clara, the frail 78-year-old philanthropist who had trusted her, deserved more. Her mother's voice echoed, "Stand tall, Amara." With a trembling hand, she began typing an email to Clara, pouring her heart into every word, detailing the swapped vial and her desperate act to save her. She sent it through Sarah, a quiet woman who had once offered her a kind smile in the break room. Inside the hospital, Clara lay in room 312, her silver hair stark against the pillow, her heart monitor a steady metronome in the sterile silence. The storm outside had quieted, but a different storm brewed within her. Though weakened by her heart condition, Clara's mind was sharp, her instincts honed from decades of reading people. Chloe's accusation against Amara hadn't sat right. Clara's frail fingers twitched as she recalled Amara's steady hands adjusting her IV, the way her voice had calmed the chaos of that near-fatal moment. She pressed the call button, summoning a nurse. "Get me the security chief," she rasped, her voice barely above a whisper but carrying the weight of command. "I want the footage from my room. Now!" The security office hummed with the low buzz of monitors, screens flickering with feeds from every corner of the hospital. Clara's request sent ripples through the staff, their whispers trailing like smoke. "She's asking for what?" one guard muttered, glancing at his colleague. "The old lady's barely awake, and she wants footage?" But they complied, pulling up the time-stamped video from room 312. The grainy footage revealed the truth. Chloe's swift hands swapping the vial, her lips curling as she accused Amara, and Amara's frantic correction of the overdose, her face taut with focus. The guards exchanged uneasy looks. This wasn't just a mistake. It was sabotage. Clara's room was bathed in the soft glow of a bedside lamp when Ethan Hawthorne arrived, his suit creased from a sleepless night of boardroom battles. His dark eyes, heavy with exhaustion, softened as he sat beside his grandmother. "You're pushing yourself too hard," he said, his voice gentle but strained. Clara's gaze was unyielding. "Ethan, I need you to see something." She gestured to the tablet the security chief had left, the paused footage a frozen indictment. Ethan's brow furrowed as he pressed play. The screen showed Chloe's betrayal in stark clarity, her deliberate swap, her venomous accusation, Amara's desperate save. His jaw tightened, a muscle twitching as anger replaced confusion. "She lied to me," he whispered, his voice thick with disbelief. "My own sister." Ethan found Chloe in the hospital's surgical wing, her white coat pristine as she reviewed patient charts with feigned calm. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, amplifying the tension as he approached. "We need to talk," he said, his tone low but sharp. Chloe's smile was practiced, her blue eyes glinting with confidence. "About what, Ethan? Your precious nurse?" But her bravado faltered as he held up the tablet. The footage paused on her damning act. "Explain this," he demanded. Chloe's face blanched, but she recovered quickly, her voice turning saccharine. "You're misunderstanding, Ethan. I was protecting grandmother. Amara's the one who—" Ethan cut her off, his voice cold. "Enough. I saw you swap the vial. You endangered her life for the foundation." Chloe's lips parted, but no words came. For the first time, her mask slipped, revealing the greed beneath. Amara, meanwhile, sat in the cafe, her coffee long gone cold. Sarah's reply pinged on her phone. "Clara got your email. She's furious. Security's pulling footage." Hope flickered in Amara's chest, fragile but fierce. She clutched her phone, her mind racing. Would Clara believe her? Could the truth break through Chloe's lies? The cafe's windows reflected her weary face, but her mother's words steadied her. "They'll try to break you, but you're stronger." She straightened, her resolve hardening. She wasn't just fighting for herself. She was fighting for Clara, for the trust they'd built. Back at the hospital, Ethan paced Clara's room, his mind a storm of guilt and fury. Clara's voice, though weak, cut through. "Bring her back, Ethan. Amara's the only one I trust." He nodded, his throat tight. He'd been blind, swayed by Chloe's manipulation and his own stress. But the footage was undeniable, and Clara's faith in Amara was a beacon. He dialed Amara's number, his voice steady despite the weight of his error. Amara, it's Ethan. I saw the footage. You were right. Come back. We need you. Amara's breath caught, tears pricking her eyes as she stood in the cafe, the drizzle outside mirroring her relief. I'm on my way, she said, her voice breaking but resolute. As Amara stepped into the rain, her sneakers splashing through puddles, the hospital loomed ahead, its lights a promise of redemption. But the whispers of the staff lingered in her mind. Doubt, prejudice, the weight of being the outsider. She knew returning wouldn't be easy. Chloe's influence ran deep, and the hospital's sterile halls hid more than medical charts. Yet as she approached the glass doors, her heart pounded with purpose. Clara's trust, her mother's legacy, and her own unyielding spirit were her armor. The storm had not broken her. It had only begun to reveal her strength. The drizzle had stopped, leaving San Francisco's streets glistening under the sodium glow of streetlights. Inside St. Augustine's private hospital, Amara Jones stepped through the glass doors, her Navy uniform still damp from the night storm, her heart a tangle of resolve and trepidation. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting harsh shadows across the polished linoleum as she returned to room 312. Clara Hawthorne, frail but awake, reached out a trembling hand from her bed, her pale blue eyes glinting with pride. You're back, Amara, she whispered, her voice raspy but warm. My fighter. Amara managed a small smile, her throat tight. Ethan Hawthorne, standing nearby, his suit slightly rumpled, nodded solemnly. You're not just a nurse now, he said. You're Clara's primary caregiver. I'm sorry I doubted you. His words carried weight, but the hospital's sterile air felt heavier still, thick with whispers and sidelong glances from the staff. Word of Amara's reinstatement spread like wildfire through San Francisco's elite medical circles. By morning, headlines blazed across local news sites. Hawthorne heir reinstates controversial nurse after scandal. Social media buzzed, some praising Amara's loyalty, others sneering at her sudden rise. She's playing the victim, one commenter wrote. A nobody climbing the ladder, another scoffed. In the hospital's break room, nurses huddled over their phones, their voices low but sharp. She's got Ethan fooled, one muttered, stirring her coffee. Clara's too old to know better, another added. A young orderly, Sarah, who had relayed Amara's email to Clara, shook her head. You didn't see her save Mrs. Hawthorne. She's the real deal. But her words were drowned by the chorus of doubt, the staff's prejudice, a wall Amara could feel but not see. Ethan, in his office overlooking the bay, scrolled through the headlines, his jaw tight. He'd made amends, offering Amara not only her job, but a promotion to primary caregiver, along with a medical scholarship for her younger brother in Atlanta. Yet the backlash was relentless. Donors to the Hawthorne Foundation whispered concerns about instability, their emails piling up in his inbox. Ethan's dark eyes narrowed as he read a message from a board member. This nurse drama is bad for our image. Handle it. He slammed his laptop shut, guilt gnawing at him. He'd trusted Chloe too easily, and now Amara was paying the price. But he couldn't back down, not after seeing the footage, not after Clara's unwavering faith in her. Chloe Hawthorne, meanwhile, nursed her wounded pride in the surgical wing, her white coat a stark contrast to the fury in her blue eyes. Her plan to seize control of the foundation had crumbled, exposed by the damning security footage. But she wasn't finished. In a quiet corner of the hospital, she met with a group of disgruntled shareholders, their faces shadowed by ambition. Amara's a threat, Chloe hissed, her voice low. She's turned Ethan against me. Against us. We need to act. The shareholders nodded, their minds already spinning with schemes. One, a sharp-eyed man in a tailored suit, leaned forward. We'll make her regret coming back. The hospital's no place for her kind. Chloe's lips curled, a plan taking shape, a plan darker than the storm that had passed. Amara felt the weight of every stare as she moved through the hospital, her clipboard clutched like a shield. Checking Clara's vitals, she kept her focus on the steady beep of the heart monitor, but the whispers followed her. She's too ambitious, a nurse murmured in the hall. Thinks she's one of them now, another scoffed. Amara's chest tightened, but her mother's voice steadied her. Stand tall, Amara. They'll try to break you. She adjusted Clara's blanket with care, her fingers brushing the old woman's hand. Clara's eyes opened, sharp despite her frailty. "Don't let them shake you," she said softly. "You're here for me, not them." Amara nodded, her resolve hardening. But the hospital's sterile walls seemed to close in, each glance a reminder of her isolation. Outside, the city hummed, its lights reflecting off the bay like scattered jewels. But inside, tension coiled tighter. Ethan called Amara to his office, his expression a mix of determination and worry. "The board's restless," he admitted, rubbing his temples. "They want this story buried, but I won't let you go. You saved Clara." He slid a folder across the desk, outlining her new role and the scholarship for her brother. "This is my promise to you," he said. Amara's eyes widened, gratitude warring with fear. "Thank you, Mr. Hawthorne," she whispered, "but they'll never accept me." Ethan's gaze was steady. "They don't have to. Clara does. I do." As Amara left the office, she overheard a group of nurses near the elevator, their voices sharp. "She's got him wrapped around her finger," one said. "A scholarship? For what? Playing the hero?" Sarah, the orderly, stepped forward, her voice firm. "She saved Mrs. Hawthorne's life. Would you have done that?" The group fell silent, but their eyes lingered on Amara, cold and unyielding. She kept her head high, her mother's words a mantra. "You're stronger than their words." But the pressure was mounting, a storm brewing beneath the hospital's polished surface. Chloe's plan took shape in the shadows. Late that night, she sent an encrypted message to the shareholders. "We strike soon. She won't see it coming." The hospital's lights flickered, as if echoing the threat. Amara, checking Clara's chart one last time, felt a prickle down her spine. The air was too still, the silence too heavy. She glanced at Clara, sleeping peacefully, and whispered, "I won't let you down." But as she stepped into the corridor, the weight of unseen eyes followed her. The truth had brought her back, but it had also painted a target on her back. The hospital, once a place of healing, was now a battlefield, and Amara knew the fight was far from over. The night was thick with silence, broken only by the soft hum of machines in St. Augustine's private hospital. In room 312, Clara Hawthorne lay in a fragile coma, her silver hair stark against the pillow. The heart monitor's steady beep, a faint thread of life. Amara Jones, her Navy uniform creased from a long shift, stood by the bedside, her dark eyes scanning the chart with meticulous care. The hospital's sterile air felt heavier tonight, the San Francisco skyline beyond the window, a blur of lights against a starless sky. Amara's fingers trembled as she adjusted Clara's IV, a prickle of unease crawling up her spine. The whispers of the staff, the weight of their stares, and the headlines branding her a controversy had not shaken her resolve, but they had sharpened her senses. Something was wrong. Chloe Hawthorne slipped through the hospital's shadowed corridors, her white coat discarded for a dark sweater, her blonde hair tucked under a cap. Her blue eyes glinted with cold purpose, her fingers clutching an unmarked syringe filled with a lethal dose of sedative. Clara's coma, induced by a recent heart episode, was her opportunity. The Foundation's control hung in the balance, and Clara's life was the final obstacle. Chloe's lips curled as she whispered to herself, "You've blocked me too long, grandmother." The door to room 312 creaked open, and she stepped inside, the syringe gleaming faintly in the monitor's glow. Her voice was a venomous hiss. "This ends tonight." Amara's head snapped up from the chart, her heart lurching as she saw Chloe's silhouette. The syringe caught her eye, its purpose unmistakable. "What are you doing?" she demanded, her voice low but sharp. Chloe froze, her expression twisting into a sneer. "Stay out of this, nurse," she spat, stepping toward Clara's IV line. Amara's instincts surged. She lunged forward, planting herself between Chloe and the bed, her arms spread wide like a shield. "You won't touch her!" Her voice trembled with defiance, but her stance was unyielding, her body a barrier against death itself. Chloe's eyes blazed with fury. "You're nothing," she snarled, shoving Amara hard against the wall. The impact jolted Amara's shoulder, her uniform tearing as it caught on a metal tray, blood seeping through the fabric. Pain shot through her, but she gripped the bed frame, refusing to budge. "You're just a waita," Chloe hissed, raising the syringe like a weapon. "Know your place." Amara's breath hitched, but her mother's voice echoed in her mind. "Stand tall, Amara." With a surge of adrenaline, she grabbed a nearby medical cart and shoved it forward, its wheels screeching as it slammed into Chloe's legs. The syringe clattered to the floor, spinning out of reach. The crash echoed through the room, metal instruments scattering across the linoleum. Chloe stumbled, her cap falling to reveal her furious face, but the noise had already drawn attention. Alarms blared as the hospital's security system registered the disturbance. Amara's heart pounded, her shoulder throbbing, but she held her ground, her eyes locked on Chloe. "You won't hurt her," she said, her voice breaking but resolute. Clara's fingers twitched faintly on the bed, a subtle sign of life, as if her spirit sensed the battle unfolding. Chloe lunged for the syringe, but footsteps thundered in the corridor. Security guards burst through the door, their radios crackling as they tackled Chloe to the ground. "Let me go!" she screamed, thrashing against their grip. But the guards were relentless, pinning her arms as the syringe rolled harmlessly under the bed. Amara sank against the wall, her breath ragged, blood trickling down her arm. The guards dragged Chloe away, her shouts fading into the hospital's sterile hum. A nurse, Sarah, rushed in, her eyes wide with shock. "Amara, are you okay?" she asked, grabbing a bandage from the crash cart. Amara nodded weakly, her gaze fixed on Clara's still form. "She's safe," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the monitor's steady beep. Sarah knelt beside her, wrapping the wound. "You saved her again," she said, her voice tinged with awe. But Amara's mind was elsewhere, replaying Chloe's venomous words, the glint of the syringe, the weight of her own defiance. Ethan Hawthorne arrived minutes later, his suit disheveled, his face pale with fury and fear. He'd been in a late meeting when the alarm sounded, his phone buzzing with urgent calls from security. "What happened?" he demanded, his eyes darting from Amara's bloodied shoulder to Clara's bed. Sarah recounted the scene, her words tumbling out. Chloe's intrusion, the syringe, Amara's desperate stand. Ethan's jaw tightened, his guilt resurfacing. He knelt beside Amara, his voice low. "You put yourself in danger for her. I should have seen this coming." Amara met his gaze, her exhaustion giving way to resolve. "I had to," she said simply. "She's worth it." The hospital settled into an uneasy quiet, the storm outside long gone, but the air inside was charged with the aftermath. Amara stayed by Clara's side, her hand resting lightly on the old woman's arm, the monitor's rhythm a fragile promise. Security footage was already being pulled, the truth of Chloe's betrayal captured in stark clarity. But Amara felt no triumph, only a bone-deep weariness. The staff's whispers would shift now, some to respect, others to resentment. But the fight wasn't over. Chloe's desperation had exposed a deeper threat, one tied to the Foundation's power. As Amara watched Clara's chest rise and fall, she whispered, "I won't let you down." The hospital's lights flickered, casting long shadows, and in their depths, Amara sensed the battle was only beginning. The morning sun pierced the fog over San Francisco, its golden light glinting off the glass facade of St. Augustine's private hospital. Inside, the air buzzed with a restless energy, the sterile halls alive with whispers of the previous night's chaos. Amara Jones stood in the hospital's grand conference room, her navy uniform replaced by a modest gray dress, her bandaged shoulder a silent testament to her stand against Chloe Hawthorne's deadly syringe. Her dark eyes, though weary, burned with quiet resolve as she faced a sea of reporters, their cameras flashing like lightning. Ethan Hawthorne stood beside her, his suit impeccable, but his face etched with determination. Clara Hawthorne, still frail in her hospital bed, appeared via a large screen, her pale blue eyes sharp despite her coma's lingering shadow. The room, packed with medical staff and Foundation donors, held its breath, waiting for the truth to break the silence. Ethan stepped to the podium, his voice steady but laced with fury. "Last night, my grandmother's life was threatened, not by illness, but by betrayal." His words cut through the murmurs, silencing the crowd. He gestured to the screen behind him, where security footage flickered to life. The grainy images showed Chloe, her cap askew, slipping into room 312 with a syringe, her face twisted with intent. Then Amara, lunging to shield Clara, her arms outstretched, her body absorbing Chloe's shove. The room gasped as the cart crashed, the syringe clattering to the floor. Ethan's jaw tightened. Amara Jones saved my grandmother's life, not once, but twice. The lies against her end here. His gaze swept the crowd, daring anyone to challenge him. Amara's heart pounded as Ethan turned to her, his hand extended. Amara, the floor is yours. She hesitated, her palms damp, the weight of every eye pressing down. She'd never spoken to a crowd, never stood in a spotlight meant for others. But Clara's image on the screen, her frail hand raised in encouragement, steadied her. Amara stepped forward, her voice trembling at first, then growing firm. I didn't choose this job for fame or power, she said, her words echoing in the hushed room. I chose it because Mrs. Hawthorne trusted me, because I believe every life is worth protecting. I stood in front of her last night because it was right, not because it was easy. Her gaze met the cameras unflinching. I'm just a nurse, but I'll never stop standing for what's right. The room fell silent, her words hanging like a vow. Then Clara's voice crackled through the screen, weak but piercing. Amara, you're my hero. The words broke the spell, and applause erupted, rippling through the crowd. Reporters scribbled furiously, their cameras capturing Amara's steady gaze, her bandaged shoulder, her quiet strength. Ethan placed a hand on her arm, his expression one of pride and guilt. You've done more than protect her, he whispered. You've given us back our honor. Amara's throat tightened, tears pricking her eyes, but she held her head high, her mother's mantra echoing, Stand tall, Amara. Outside the conference room, the hospital staff watched on monitors, their reactions a mix of awe and unease. Sarah, the orderly who had helped Amara, beamed, her eyes glistening. She did it, she murmured to a colleague, but others whispered in corners, their prejudice unshaken. She's still an outsider, one nurse muttered. This changes nothing. Yet the tide was turning. Some nodded in reluctant respect, their doubts crumbling under the weight of truth. The footage was undeniable, and Amara's words had cut through the hospital's sterile facade, exposing the raw courage beneath. Chloe Hawthorne, now confined to a security office under guard, watched the broadcast on a small screen, her face pale, her blonde hair disheveled. The footage had stripped her bare, her ambition laid out for the world to judge. She'd been contacted by the state medical board, her license under review, and whispers of legal action loomed. Her allies, the disgruntled shareholders, were already distancing themselves, their names tied to a lawsuit Ethan had filed for financial fraud. Chloe's hands clenched, her nails digging into her palms, but her power was gone, shattered by the truth Amara had fought for. Ethan returned to the podium, his voice resolute. The Hawthorne Foundation will not bow to lies or greed. Amara is not just a nurse, she's family, and we'll protect her as fiercely as she protected Clara. The applause swelled again, but Amara felt the weight of his words, both a shield and a burden. The cameras swiveled, capturing her every move, and she knew the world was watching now, not just San Francisco, but beyond. Her story, once confined to hospital halls, was spilling into headlines, into lives she'd never imagined touching. As the conference ended, Amara slipped into Clara's room, the chaos of the press fading behind her. Clara, propped up in bed, reached for her hand, her grip weak but warm. You spoke from the heart, she rasped, her eyes shining. Just like your mother. Amara's chest ached, gratitude and grief intertwining. She adjusted Clara's blanket, her fingers steady despite the whirlwind of the day. The hospital's lights glowed softly, the city's hum a distant pulse beyond the windows. But Amara knew the battle wasn't over. Chloe's fall was only the beginning, and the whispers, those of doubt, of envy, still lingered in the halls. Yet, as she stood by Clara's side, she felt a quiet strength rising. The truth had spoken, and she had been its voice. The dawn broke over San Francisco, painting the bay in hues of gold and pink, the light filtering through the tall windows of St. Augustine's private hospital. The frenetic energy of the previous day's conference had settled, leaving a quiet that felt both fragile and profound. Amara Jones stood in room 312, her navy uniform crisp, her bandaged shoulder a fading reminder of her stand against Chloe's treachery. Clara Hawthorne, no longer in a coma, sat propped against pillows, her silver hair catching the morning sun, her frail hand reaching for Amara's. The heart monitor's steady beep was a testament to survival, a rhythm of hope. Amara adjusted Clara's blanket with gentle care, her dark eyes soft but resolute. The hospital, once a battlefield of whispers and betrayal, now hummed with a tentative peace, its sterile halls carrying the echo of truth. The news of Chloe's downfall had spread like wildfire. Headlines blazed across every outlet. Hawthorne heir exposes sister's plot, nurse hero vindicated. Chloe, stripped of her medical license and facing prosecution for attempted harm and financial fraud, was a shadow of her former self, her ambition reduced to a cautionary tale. The shareholders who had backed her scheme scrambled to distance themselves, their names tarnished by Ethan's swift legal action. Amara's story, though, was the one that lingered. Her image, standing firm before Clara's bed, her words at the conference echoing in homes and hospital break rooms alike. She was no longer just a nurse, she was a symbol of something greater. Ethan Hawthorne stood in the hospital's atrium, addressing a small gathering of staff and foundation members. His suit was immaculate, but his voice carried a warmth that hadn't been there before. Amara Jones didn't just save my grandmother, he said, his gaze finding her in the crowd. She reminded us what loyalty means, what honor looks like. He announced the Clara Hawthorne Nursing Program, a foundation initiative to train nurses from marginalized communities, with Amara appointed as its director. The crowd erupted in applause, though some nurses exchanged wary glances, their prejudice not fully erased. Ethan's eyes met Amara's, his nod a silent promise. Your family now. The announcement came with a new honor. The National Nurses Association had named Amara the recipient of their Loyalty in Care Award, a rare accolade for a nurse who had risked everything. The ceremony, held virtually to accommodate Clara's recovery, beamed across the country. Amara stood in a modest navy dress, her voice steady as she accepted the award via video. I'm no hero, she said, her words clear and resonant. I'm a nurse who did her job. But if my stand means others can rise, then every scar was worth it. The virtual audience, nurses, doctors, strangers, cheered, their messages flooding social media. Amara is proof loyalty matters. Clara, watching from her hospital bed, squeezed Amara's hand, her voice a whisper. You saved me, just like your mother did. Your family. Amara's new office overlooked the bay, its shelves lined with medical texts and a single photo of her mother, smiling in her own nurse's uniform. The space, once a storage room, was now a quiet haven, a testament to her rise. Yet as she sat at her desk, organizing the nursing program's first cohort, the weight of her journey lingered. The staff's whispers had softened, but not vanished. She's earned it, Sarah, the orderly, said in the break room, her voice firm. Anyone who says otherwise didn't see her stand. A few nodded, their respect grudging but growing, while others turned away, their doubts a stubborn stain. Amara felt their stares in the halls, but she walked taller, her mother's mantra her shield. Stand tall, Amara. Ethan visited Clara's room that evening, his face lighter than it had been in months. The foundation's stronger now, he told Amara, his voice earnest, because of you. He handed her a letter detailing the scholarship for her brother in Atlanta, fully funded. Amara's eyes glistened, her voice soft. I don't know how to thank you, Mr. Hawthorne. Ethan shook his head. You thanked me by being here, by leading that program, by giving Clara the dignity she deserves. Clara, awake and alert, added, You're not just my nurse, Amara. You're my family. Her words, frail but fierce, settled in Amara's chest, a warmth that outshone the bay's golden glow. As night fell, Amara stood by Clara's bed, the city's lights twinkling beyond the window. She adjusted the blanket, her touch gentle, her heart full. Clara drifted to sleep, her breathing steady, and Amara stepped to the window, the bay stretching before her like a promise. The hospital, once a place of suspicion, now felt like a home. Not perfect, but healing. The whispers would linger, the scars would remain, but Amara's strength was unshakable. She whispered to herself, her voice steady and sure. I will not break. The truth had won, and in its victory, Amara had found not just honor, but hope, a hope that would carry her and those who followed into a brighter dawn. Amara's story is a beacon of courage, proving that loyalty and honor can shine through the darkest storms. Her unwavering stand for Clara inspires us all to rise above doubt and fight for what's right. Share your thoughts. How did Amara's journey touch you? Drop a comment with where you're watching from and what this story means to you. Thank you for joining us in this tale of resilience and hope. Until next time, keep standing tall.